Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, July 8th from 6 to 7. We are so excited to have you for this Digital Defender training. It is the first one that we're doing with Influence NC and Democracy NC. So we just are just excited to see how many folks are in the room to talk about ways that you can be a good digital defender. If you could put your name in the chat, what county you're coming from, what you're excited to learn throughout this, we are just so glad to have y'all. Next slide. Before we get started into the nitty-gritty of the content, we wanted to talk about some of those common practices throughout this. So if you have questions, feel free just to drop them into the chat. We will have a Q&A period at the end of this conversation. That way we can answer all of the questions that you may have. We'll go to that next slide, Seth. We want to talk about some group norms and what this looks like, setting those best practices and those intentions at the beginning of this conversation. So both Democracy NC and Influence NC are nonpartisan coalitions. This is a nonpartisan space. And so I wanted to read the statement that we have for you is that, again, we are a nonpartisan coalition. This is a nonpartisan space and a place for nonpartisan solutions to be the challenge we face. We want this to be about, we want this to be about D's versus R's, but we know it's the right and wrong. We are centering racial justice and the intersectional movement. We know that racist and oppression policies cause damage many of the representation and resources and inequities in the state over the past decade. And it's only this acknowledgement and fusion of movements that will help us map a future that we can believe in. So we talk about the foundation of what it comes to local and state level policy. We're talking about what it means to sit in on these meetings, to be a part of these government operations. And so we just want to make sure we're setting that intention of this nonpartisan conversation. And if you have questions about that, that's always something you can ask us. We're just really glad to have y'all here. Anything that just so you want to add about that before we go to our next slide real fast about norms and intentions before we head in?
Yeah, no, I mean, you did a great job. It's a highly polarizing environment out there, and they really want us to be really mad at each other, but we are not mad at each other. We are mad at the establishment. We are mad at the failure of state and federal and local government putting the people first. And so that's what we're here to document and talk about tonight. We're here to make sure we hold our local, state, and federal leaders accountable to the people of North Carolina and not the pockets of lobbyists and corporations.
Beautifully said. Seth, we'll go into the next slide. We have a great group of folks that are here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and do my intro and then I'll give it over to our lovely partners. For those that I haven't met yet, my name is Hannah Preston. I'm the founder of Influence NC and a political creator with the account Health Policy Princess. My background is in public health and I found myself in this democracy space that I'm so grateful to be a part of. Influence NC is nonpartisan. We focus on using social media to talk about local and state level politics because we know politics can be confusing. Government can feel like it is far away from us when really we know there's so much that we can do today locally. And so we've launched in October. We'll have a lot of ways that folks can get involved both digitally and in person here in the state of North Carolina. And I'll pass over to Giselle.
Hey everyone, welcome so much. Welcome and thank you so much for being here tonight. Thanks to Hannah and Seth from Influence NC for having us here. Democracy NC, we've been in this space for many, many years now, but we're so grateful that you are here tonight. And we have this fresh energy, this youthful energy of folks who are willing to commit to, again, holding our local leaders accountable and being there to document what they might not want us to document, right? They often, like they did the budget last week, do it behind closed doors without public input, and we're here to say no. So thank you so much to Influence NC for getting this idea going, for really engaging folks in this way, because this is now another way and another tree, I'd like to say, on the branch of revolution that we can use, a tool that we can really use to push people power here in North Carolina. Seth?
Hey, folks. My name is Seth Dye, like it says on the screen. I'm a student advocate and student at Western Carolina my university. I'm also a digital media intern for Influence NC. So a lot of the kind of Hannah style videos that you probably know that cover anything from General Assembly topics to County Board of Elections and things like that. I do the same thing. And I'm also the president of College Dems at Western and have done a lot of organizing around the voter suppression that's happened in the last semester and a half about that in a very remote area that's very far removed from Raleigh and thus more susceptible to kind of these targets on voting. And so near the end of our presentation, I'll be giving just a brief overview of a little case study of what happened and what we went through at Western with regard to our county board of elections and what we did to garner statewide attention to that, why it's still being talked about in the news, and just the importance of the things that we did and the community that we organized around that issue, so that hopefully we can inspire similar levels of organizational success in counties across the state.
Thanks, Zach. We'll head to our next slide. Okay, we wanted to ask sort of some preliminary questions of when it comes to voting and ways that people have gotten involved. So in the chat, if you could answer for us, have you ever been to the North Carolina General Assembly? And have you ever spoken to a local or state official? I love seeing some of these answers. I'm seeing yeses. I'm seeing yeses to both. I love this. So a lot of different interests here. This is fabulous. Someone's given a public comment. That's amazing. Intern at your local county office. This is so great. We have a lot of folks that are coming in talking about ways to get involved that have already been involved. This is really great to see. Amazing. Walked a bill through the legislature. This is fabulous. Joselle, I'll pass it over to you as well to talk about next steps and to go into the legislative summary.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, lots of great comments in the chat here. Love seeing all of this too. That walked a bill through the state legislature kind of reminds me, I don't know if you saw that trend of like lawmakers where they're like holding bills like men put proud fish up after they catch them. And that's what I think of walking a bill through the state legislature, a pro people. Yes, Vanita, a pro people, pro democracy bill. We could go ahead and go to the next slide. Well, I'm going to start off at the state legislature and kind of give a little background. Some of y'all might be familiar, as some of y'all said in the chat, but the General Assembly makes laws and creates the state budget. That is what it's for. There is nothing else they should be doing except creating state laws and the state budget. It's the most important thing. And there's two chambers, the House of Representatives, which is 120 members, and the NC Senate, which is 50 members. Representatives are elected to 2-year terms. So you have the general presidential elections that happen in even years 2020, 2024, 2028. But then those other even years are really important because state officials and state maps, as I'm sure you might be familiar with the gerrymandering wars that are happening, these positions get elected every 2 years. And so there's a long session in the odd number years. And then in the even number years, we have short sessions because they are midterms and general elections. And the Speaker of the House and the Senate President pro tem oversee those two chambers and are elected by members of the majority party. The president of the Senate is the Lieutenant Governor, Rachel Hunt, of the state, and only votes to break a tie. We can go ahead, yeah, to the next slide. So we've got two folks here, Bill Berger, who's the Senate President pro tem, and Destin Hall, who's the Speaker of the House. Now, if y'all also might have been tuned in the primaries, Bill Berger lost his primary and he lost on election night. There was still counting ballots, very important in the county canvas to continue counting all valid ballots because his loss went from 8 votes to a final count of 23 votes. And that's still really, really tight. So us showing up at these state board of election meetings, showing up at these county board of elections meetings when they're doing the ballot counting process, which could be something that you sign up for, down the road, is really important because 23 votes is literally deciding the entire leadership of the North Carolina Senate. And that is going to change. They're going to elect somebody new to be the president pro temp. It hasn't happened January 1st. So we'll have a new person in power in the Senate, and then Destin Hall is the Speaker of the House. And so there's lots of different like committees. There's an elections committee, a judiciary committee. There's a housing committee, a health committee. All of these committees oversee the different types of bills. And when bills are in committee, is when you can make your voice heard. So when something goes to the Senate floor or the House floor, only lawmakers can actually debate or make public comment. But when things are in committee, that's when you can make your voice heard. That's when you can record audio, video, someone else's public testimony, your own public testimony, and really get that information out. We like to say there's the true courts, right? That we need to rely and depend on the North Carolina State Supreme Court, the federal courts, local level courts, and then there's the court of public opinion. And because things are so polarizing, the court of public opinion really matters. It always has, but it really, really matters these days. And so when we're able to go to the Senate and go to the House and really shine a light on these meetings that often happen in the middle of the day without much notice, we're able to help others stay informed. And you can, yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide. So yeah, going to the state legislators, really easy. It's straightforward. It is in Raleigh. North Carolina is like 8 hours long, going down 40. So I know it can be a long drive for some folks, but I always love to encourage folks to make a day out of it. Raleigh has a science museum and a history museum that's right across the street from the state legislature. Lots of really great like downtown places to eat for lunch and brunch. So you can come to the General Assembly, make it a good day, and also meet with your lawmaker. You can go to ncledge.gov, find your legislator, the person that represents you specifically in the House and you specifically in the Senate. Now, I want to name that Tom Tillis and Ted Budd are federal senator representative, right? U.S. congressional senators. And so they aren't necessarily going to be in the state legislature, but they have offices that are very close to the state legislature. So if you also needed to go to Tom Tillis's office to demand that he votes no on the SAVE Act again, it's pretty close by to the state legislature as well. So you can go use the lookup tool, find out where your lawmakers are at. They have offices in your district and they have offices at the state legislature. And you can show up at either one. When the lawmakers are in session, they're typically in Raleigh, but right now they're on break. They got all their business done last week with the state budget, rushed 600 pages in like 2 days. The governor has officially signed off on it and it is law. And so now lawmakers have about 2 or 3 weeks where they're at home and maybe you'll catch them at the barbershop. Maybe you'll catch them at church. Maybe you'll be able to catch them at a town hall because they should be hosting town halls when they're not at the Raleigh General Assembly. And those are also good moments where you can capture, them in public, hopefully talking about issues that matter to you. The State Board of Elections is another office that's located right next to the state legislature. So you can come down to the state legislature and you can also hit up the SBE. And it is the independent state agency responsible for overseeing the administration of elections across North Carolina, including compliance and ballot counting and campaign finance disclosure. It's a 5-member board and typically there's a majority. 3 members belong to the same political party and they are the majority. Now, in 2024, there was a lame duck power grab by the current Republican controlled majority of the state legislature, where for the first time in history, the governor doesn't appoint the State Board of Elections, the state auditor appoints the State Board of Elections. And we're the only state in the entire country where the state auditor appoints the State Board of Elections. And so Dave Bullock is the state auditor and he chooses from a nominee list. submitted by the political party state chairs and appoints the executive director and the majority board on the state board, as well as helps to do that at the county level as well. Next slide. Yeah. So these are the shining faces of our State Board of Elections. Sam Hayes, who was again appointed in 2025. He oversees everything, right? He's the executive director of the State Board of Elections, and his role is actually fixed. There's no term limits for the executive director. And he actually served with the Speaker of the House, Tim Moore, prior to Destin Hall, as a Republican consultant. So he's very well versed in state law and represented Republicans in a lot of election cases that have been controversial in the past. You have Frank DeLuca, who's been there for a while. He was appointed as the board chair again when Sam Hayes came into his executive director seat. You have Stacey Eggers, also was been there for a while, 2018. Angela Hawkins is the newest member of Republicans. She comes from the Wake County Board of Elections, but has been doing this for a really long time as well. And then you've got Sabin Millen, a Democrat, because this is now the minority. You have 3 Republicans as majority and 2 Democrats as minority. She's been there for quite a few years as well and was the chief judge for over a decade in Raleigh. And then Jeff Carmen as well was appointed in 2019 by Roy Cooper at the time and has been there for many election cycles. So very well versed, no matter what side of the aisle they're on. These are election experts that do have preferences for how elections are run in North Carolina that we all might not always agree on, but they are our state board, and Sam Hayes is our executive director. County board. So we have 100 counties in North Carolina, and every single one of those counties has an election board. Would love for you to drop in the chat. Have you ever been to your county board of elections? Do you know where it is? And if not, we can help make sure you find it. At the local level, they conduct the choosing of early voting sites, the budget, how much money is going to get allocated, how many early voting days there's going to be, ensuring that any audits, post-election audits happen fairly and securely, ensuring the security of our voting machines and voting spaces. They help hire poll workers, chief judges, like they run the elections, like legit run the elections in every single county. And again, in 2024, 2025, there was that change from the state auditor being able to appoint the chairs of each board, all 100 chairs, and they are all controlled now by a Republican as well. Great. And yes, we've got people. Yes, I almost go to every wake. Yes, Guilford, great. Amazing. And we'll be answering some more questions in the chat, so do not worry. Next slide. So going to public meetings, you can find notices for the State Board of Elections on their website. You can also sign up to receive those press releases to your email. The email is there, or sorry, the link is there, but don't worry. In our follow-up, we're going to send you a recording of this. We're going to send you all the links and resources that you need to be able to find the State Board of Election meetings and your County Board of Election meetings, because the county ones aren't necessarily as always easy to find, and we want to make sure we can do it together and make sure you can attend and show up and document what you need to document. But again, State Board, you can sign up for those releases that comes directly to your email, and then getting to know your county board and those that are on the board and the front desk staff and the person that says hello when you walk in. Those relationships are also really beneficial if, the meetings aren't necessarily easy to find where it's posted. Okay, yeah. So that is it for the section on the background of the State Board of Elections, the state legislator, and the County Board of Elections, where all of these public meetings happen. So now I'm going to kick it on over to Hannah to talk about what we can do when we get there.
Absolutely. So, one of the reasons we want to talk about this is because we want it to be accessible. As we know, a lot of these meetings are during the day, sometimes during work hours. So we know that not everyone can be there. And so we want to talk about ways that people can get involved if they are able to be there in person, so that if you're someone who can't, you still know what's going on. And so some questions we have, if you could put them into the chat, where are you the friend who likes to take the pictures or be in them? And what device do you like to use for your pictures or videos? So feel free to put those in the chat for us. And Seth, we'll go to the next slide. Okay. Want to talk about recording meetings, because this is something that was very surprising to me in North Carolina. We had a couple of folks in the chat talk about how they might go to their local board of elections meeting. Their board has a recording function, which is fabulous because that's not the case everywhere. The state level, if you were to go to our General Assembly, our North Carolina House of Representatives meetings are live streamed. You're able to go on the YouTube, you're able to watch it. That's not the case in the Senate. You can only listen to the audio in real time, or you have to go through staff to get the audio after the fact. That's the same for the Board of Elections. You're able to watch live on WebEx. But when it comes to our local counties, it's really up to the county. So some counties will have the capability where you can live stream. Others will not. And even if they say online that they're able to live stream, we found that sometimes that they don't actually do that in real time. And so being there in person, being able to capture these moments is truly super important. At the same time, the reason that Influence NC truly got kind of wrapped up in its Board of Elections work is because we went to a Guilford County Board of Elections meeting where they were going to take away the polling place from A&T, the largest HBCU in the country. And I looked around and there was one news station. And I thought something must be wrong. Someone must have the wrong date, because there should be more news here. And that's reality of, journalism is dwindling a little bit. We know that people can't be everywhere. And so this is where we're filling that gap so that people know what's going on in their communities, because also there's a ton of different agencies. You could go to city council, county commission, board of elections at your local level, and many more, as well as your state level. So we'll talk about ways that you can get involved, not just at the General Assembly, not just at the Board of Elections. All of what we'll talk about today can be translated to pretty much any local or state level government. I just wanted to level set as well and make sure that this is pretty plain of recording audios during public meetings is legal and okay. That is something that you as a United States citizen are able to do, is to sit in these meetings, be a part of them, and record them. But we found that oftentimes we are sometimes the only ones there with our phones out. And so sometimes you might get some feedback of saying, hey, maybe we don't like that you're doing that, and that is in your right to be able to record. And so I just wanted to give the disclaimers. If you ever are in any of these meetings and someone does give you a hard time, you can always say you're a digital defender with Influence NC and give them our contact. We're happy to talk through that with them. But just so you know, everything you're doing when it comes to whether it's video or audio recording in the state of North Carolina in these meetings is fully legal and okay to do. Seth, next slide. Okay, where will these videos be posted? This is something that's been really exciting because, again, we can't be in all 100 counties, but we know we have these great trusted messengers, these digital defenders that can be. And so there's some different ways where these videos or this audio can be used. Sometimes it's across our social media platforms. We'll be posting it to our accounts so that we can expand and see what's going on. Sometimes they're used in op-eds, and other times, depending on the content, they're also used in media and news outlets. So we'll be talking about ways to do this in a way that's helpful for those videos, and also making sure you're remaining, keeping your privacy in this process. Next slide, Zach. Perfect. Okay, so formats that we prefer. I will say right now the bar is pretty low because we know that sometimes we don't even have people in these areas. So I will say this is a trial and error for a lot of this. Sometimes it works in one local board of elections meeting, might not work in another, but for a general rule of thumb, there's two formats that we prefer. One is an audio recording. This is a voice memo that you can get the entirety of the meeting. When I go to board of elections meetings, I get to attend every state level board of elections meeting. And I take videos, and this is not an entire 2 hour long video. This is I'm looking at the agenda, seeing what might catch my eye, what we might need to get content for, and making sure that those videos are vertical because these are videos that we'll be putting on social media. So that's the format that we like to use. Next slide, Seth. Also, I apologize in advance. We have some weather in Wake County right now. So if you hear some thunder, we're getting through it. Um, Okay, let's see. Seth, can you go to that next slide for me? Are you still seeing the same slide?
Oh no, I'm seeing two
Okay,
slides
perfect.
ahead. Is it being weird?
I'm seeing content we look for. This is great. All good on my end. Perfect. Oh, now I'm seeing tips for filming. Okay. Can everyone see tips for filming? Can I get a thumbs up on that? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Amazing. Thank you. Okay, some tips. I will say going to your first meeting, whether that's Board of Elections, General Assembly, County Commission, can feel intimidating. So I would say go early. That way you can make sure that you know where parking is going to be. That way you know where the building is. I will say for the state general or for the state Board of Elections, it says you go in on the third floor, but really in practice, you're going in on the first floor. So some of these kind of quirky things that you wouldn't know until you were there, so give yourself time. Finding a seat at either the front of the room or the side of the room. I get nervous being up front sometimes, so I always pick a side view. So going with what fits in that way, but making sure that you can see the people that are speaking. Similar to like when you take a group photo, if you can't see them, they can't see you. So making sure you're setting yourself up for success with where you're sitting. The other one is we want to make sure that we are protecting the privacy of our digital defenders. So making sure if you are going to film, we leave the commentary out of it a little bit. You'll be shocked to know that we can hear some of that in the back or anything that would be in any kind of identifying information. So making sure that you're just taking that video as is. And then setting up your phone on a surface or using a camera stand to avoid hand fatigue if you are going to be filming for longer periods of time. Next slide. Okay, can we go back one more? Sorry. I'm seeing case study. Oh, good.
Yeah. Which one are you looking for?
The one that has the two different phones on it.
Okay, I see that on my screen.
I also see it.
Okay, that's perfect. That's what I'm seeing now. So content again that we look for. We know that two things do really well. The first are responses from the public. Giselle made a incredible video that went very viral a couple of weeks ago because we saw protesters at the General Assembly. And so getting that lived experience, seeing what's going on, seeing how the people are feeling about the policies or the choices of our elected officials. And then direct quotes. So actually hearing what our folks are hearing at the time, because sometimes, what our elected officials say in real time holds a lot of weight. Because if we weren't to have been in these meetings, the only other way that you would know what would be going on if they didn't have a recording would be going through minutes. And these minutes are a lot more basic. You're seeing the top line talking points. You're not seeing the nuance, the conversations, the little add-ins that some of our state officials are having in there that I think is really important. And we'll talk about why that is a little bit more. And I'll give it to Seth to talk about his specific case study that I think shows this in its entirety.
Yeah, so I think a helpful way to kind of show all these things that we've been talking about is what happened last spring and kind of into last year in Jackson County, where Western Carolina University is. So I thought I would kind of walk through what happened here, give you a little bit of context, and then talk about how we reacted and were able to have a successful community organizing event from it. So in 2016, with bipartisan support from county level parties and also college party affiliates on campus. The Jackson County Board of Elections established an early voting site on campus at WCU. It was in the University Center. It was highly accessible. It was well marked by the university. Parking was great. So across 5 general elections and 4 primaries from 2016 to 2024, the site served over 76,000 voters. We know that college voting sites are extremely beneficial for increasing young voter turnout, but also catering to a whole other community of faculty and staff members, especially in a rural area where the university is the dominant presence in the community. Having a polling site there is extremely beneficial, and it's reflected in data. So the site served an incredibly diverse range of voters and had the highest proportion of same-day registrations of any polling site in the entire state. Partially because Jackson County is a concentrated portion of people in a very spread out area, but also because there were a lot of people coming in and out, and the site was very beneficial, and the data backs that up. But so on paper, it's a very statistically significant polling site. It should be safe. It shouldn't go anywhere. It should be the model for how all colleges and universities should navigate hosting a polling site in their community. But as we found, the mountains and rural areas, especially in the eastern part of the state, are often used as testing grounds for any forms of voter suppression by local and state level board of elections. It's these rural, far removed areas where tactics are employed to suppress votes because those communities are seen as less likely to mount resistance. They're not dense urban centers where a lot of people are going to be working and commuting and moving and being as engaged. But so we wanted to counter that, and we did successfully. After in December of 2024, the Jackson County Board of Elections approved a plan to remove the WC polling site. With conflicting data provided to the public, we took videos of them going back and forth on what numbers, how much it would cost to do an alternative site, how many sites there were, and never provided like apt explanations as to why they were moving the site, which was sketchy. And so when sketchy things like that happen, you hit record on the camera and you just kind of buckle up and wait for whatever's going to happen. Well, the site was moved for the 2026 March primaries. It didn't go down without a fight from pages upon pages upon pages of public comment and civic community organizing action that I'll talk about in just a second. So garnering the attention of local board of election meetings, especially in rural areas, is difficult because it's harder to get people to turn out for these meetings. The official meeting where they voted to kill the site from Western, um, they changed the meeting location and the meeting time like 12 hours before the meeting was supposed to happen. It went from an afternoon that I knew a lot of people were going to be able to go to 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I had class. I got out of class to go to this meeting, but it was on the second floor of a building that nobody knew where it was. It was a very confusing parking situation. It was not easy to find, and that was intentional because they knew that that room was going to be packed full of people to try and call out these blatant acts of voter suppression. But the WSU community rose up to fight against blatant attempts at voter suppression by, I mean, just abundant amounts of public comment from everyone. It was not just students who were there, it was professors, faculty members, staff members on campus, members from the community that had voted at the early voting site on campus every year since 2016. We had community members who had gone actually to speak in support of nixing the Western site. And by the time they had heard everybody else's public comment before them, they actually backtracked and said, hey, I have heard the testimony of everybody here, and I'm changing my mind on this. That happened a couple times. I was one of the last people to give public comment. And by the time I was going up to speak, the entire room was kind of allied in this fight. But filming everything, especially the people who are doing the damage, who are taking the site away, like Hannah said, setting up a tripod in like the corner of a walkway and just capturing as much of the meeting as you can, getting those clippable moments were huge. And one of the reasons why the closure site got attention and is still getting crazy levels of attention with all the kind of corruption that's come out about the Jackson County Board of Elections is because it was so well documented. We had 6 different news outlets come to that meeting that they moved. We had student advocates and professors and staff members being interviewed in the hallway. We had people write about it. I contacted a reporter at the Smoky Mountain News. There are videos of those conflicting facts and those clippable insults, wild moments, comments like if Western students can get off campus to buy beer, then we can get off campus to vote. I mean, those things you don't expect to go crazy viral because there's no one in the room with a camera. But when there is someone in the room with a camera, the entire state now knows about this issue, and we can mobilize a group of people to combat it, which created this big moment for us. We're a college campus, and organizing is kind of what we do. So a bunch of student organizations collaborated to march 1.5-ish miles from the direct center of campus to the closest polling site, which ended up being the Jackson County Rec Center. Only the break room was used because the County Board of Elections insisted that there would not be high voter turnout, and thus they would not have to accommodate students voting by having a campus site. But almost 100 people walked on a Thursday afternoon to go and vote, and we flooded this break room. I like to joke that we made every poll worker hate us for about an hour and a half because every single person there was a college student who would have voted on campus 5 minutes from where they lived, who had just moved to Jackson County and needed to register. And there were long lines, and it proved pretty overwhelming. And there was a lot of media coverage for that as well. Smoky Mountain Times did a huge article on it. It picked up. It was I was working with Influence at the time, and I had a video that I made of just kind of documenting what it looks like to walk that far in the mountains, which is a lot harder than walking down the street. It was on the side with no sidewalk of a 4-lane highway with no protection. We had to get the State Highway Patrol to be an escort for us so that we would be safe. But documenting that got over 40,000 views on Instagram. A bunch of likes got me in conversations in rooms with people I wouldn't have otherwise have known or been introduced to since then. But by working with those campus partners, with advocates who are in all communities in all 100 North Carolina counties, when you talk to local candidates who may be on the ballot for the primary that you're walking to vote for, we had some that I know I was walking to vote for this person and walked with them to create this over-the-top demonstration that, when well documented online, I mean, those things get really, really powerful. And so there may not be a campus that you can march to. It may not be the same issue. But I implore all of the community organizers in the call that you should be looking for a big moment that is generated from this level of media coverage. When digital defenders are in these rooms and kind of sparking these conversations with statewide advocates that may not be in every room or in every conversation or know what's going on. But when you can bring that to the attention of big organizing organizations, you can have that huge moment that is still talked about, 6 to 8 months later. So what comes next? Campuses across the state are all vulnerable to these attacks, even after the march to the polls, even after all the interviews and the scandals. We still don't know if there's going to be a WSU voting site in November. Even after over an hour of public comment, even by expert testimony from my former professor, Dr. Chris Cooper, we still have no idea. And so it seems like there's a new headline coming out every week. And it's important that we stay on those things. I like to tell people that you can't just go to one meeting and get 50,000 views online and then never go to another meeting ever again. Like, that's really cool that happened one time, but they could table that vote and do it another time. And if you don't stay consistent with the content, with the organizing, with the media and the communication and the messaging, this level of change is not going to happen. Because we had refusals to eliminate college votes come out this summer. Members of the Jackson County Board of Elections were forced to step down by state Republican leadership because of text messages that came out of votes that were being threatened by state leaders saying that, if you don't vote this way, if you don't vote to kill college voting at all costs, you're going to lose your job. Just extreme levels of pressure that are coming out. I'm not even there. Like, I'm on summer break. And so it's really important that we're staying on these things long term. One video gets that incident or issue attention for months. And I'd like to close here with the plan is to always suppress, in remote areas that are inaccessible. Cullowhee is like 6 hours from Raleigh. If I was not, from Greensboro originally, there would be no way that I was meeting Hannah in Raleigh to talk and go to meetings and interact with people, or even really be on some of these calls because they're so far removed from where all of these decisions are made. If there's not a unanimous vote in your county board of election, it goes to the state. And going to the state when I am living in Greensboro is an hour and a half from my house. But going chuck up to the state board, Western had no representation when that issue was sent last semester. There were members from A&T and NC State and a lot of other schools that were affected by similar policies, but it's completely inaccessible from the most vulnerable of communities to actually be in some of these rooms. So it's even more important that we are well tracked about them, that we document them well, that we resist them more than just a couple times, that we stay on these issues year round. We showed up to meetings over the course of months to fight this. We still do. I still have contacts in Jackson County that do this. Um, because it's just such a vulnerable area. And I think it really is a testing ground for these new ideas that I want all of you to watch for in your communities.
Thank you so much, Seth. I think we got through a lot of why digital strategy like this is important. We know that it allows a layer of accountability that we need right now because democracy feels at stake at the local and state level. And so, if we all can come together and make these videos, it allows the community to know what's going on. It allows our elected officials to know, hey, the community is paying attention. And I think that attention piece is where we preserve democracy at its most sense. And so we wanted to get into some questions. Again, no question is a dumb question. We've covered a lot. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Come off mute. We have time for a couple of different questions before we close out. Let's see. I'm seeing one that says, I'm wondering how we can be mindful about how we present and capture content, especially audio at meetings, given the AI generated videos and audios is rampant throughout the web. That is such a brilliant question because I think this is a very new normal, which is so bizarre in this way. And so I think that's where the video capability becomes really helpful because it helps discern that ability that it could be AI a little bit more. And I would say also making sure you're tracking some timestamps, who's on the call, different things so that we can verify to match with what we're seeing in the agendas of these meetings. But feel free, any of our other panelists, if you want to jump into any of these questions, please do.
Yeah, I like capturing the role and then linking the minutes, find somewhere that information matches an official website. So if you've got a video or an audio recording that starts with the role and who is there and who's keeping track of this information, and then you can go online to jacksoncountyboardofelections.com and find that same information in a PDF and just kind of double check everything. But also, I spent a lot of time as an intern for Influence and See vetting all of these county board of election websites and rosters and every piece of available information here. And there's one observation about county boards of elections, at least this kind of small pocket, and this does not apply to the General Assembly. But no one's using AI to really mimic these right now. And most of these websites are very old. And no one is sitting in these meetings trying to come up with like AI generated anything. Now there could be people who try and fact check your video and say this might be AI, but I don't think you'd ever interact with a piece of content that you would maybe be contradicted by because it's AI generated. No one cares enough to AI generate a board of elections meeting, at least in like Jackson County. But that's really interesting because we should care about these things, and I'm kind of surprised that people aren't doing AIG picks of these meetings.
I'll chime
Hey,
in.
can I, oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna jump in with a question. Is there a way that, maybe everyone on this call could coordinate or get in like a group chat or have some files shared with like where we can log events and maybe coordinate? Because I know someone else in the chat mentioned they were from Forsyth. I'm from Forsyth, and it's just hard for one person or like for us on our own to keep up with everything happening. So I was wondering if you guys would want to maybe organize something so we could like check in with each other. Um, that's my first question. And then my second question, so I run a new social media account for the Sierra Club here, and we kind of track and monitor environmental issues. And actually, Hannah, thank you because you reposted something that I shared about a commissioner meeting last week, and that helped it get a lot of views. But if I were to like create video for that account, could I also share it with you guys? Or would you want that to be separate so you're not using the same content? Or like could I tag you guys as a collaborator or vice versa? I don't know if you guys have thought that far. It's okay if you don't have an answer right now. But Yeah, those are my two questions.
Yeah, just I'll let you kick it off with a collaboration post of it to see what Democracy NC does, and then I'm happy to handle the Influence NC part of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think collabs in general are kind of taken off in 2026, and it's a way for us. And someone said this in the chat too, and this is going to be my response to like the AI situation too. Like being with Democracy and See, we've been around for over 30 years. Common Cause North Carolina, decades, right? And Influence and See is new to the space, but the fact that we're partnering together gives the credibility of a recording or an audio or anything that we collab on to validate that it's real. And so Sierra Club also has that namesake in North Carolina and in the chapters across the states. And so I think that is what we're looking for collaborations is just credible sources, credible organizations that we can collab with, and just ensuring that the content is nonpartisan. And when I say nonpartisan, there isn't an opinion about what's happening. What's happening can be partisan. We just aren't layering an opinion about it. And so we are just putting the fact out there. We're putting the shenanigans out there or the, corruption, etc. But we aren't necessarily layering our opinion about it. Just to Seth's point, to get the word out when they probably wanted no one to hear about it. And so that is kind of what the way that we approach collaborations. We do like to review the collaborations, and we're all up in DMs making sure you know why we are or are not. I also dropped a link in the chat, demonsy.co/recordings. That is a Google folder where you can drop in these audio recordings, video recordings. I do want to name that it does take up space on your phone. And I got so many pictures of my little family that I'm like, oh my God. So as soon as you record something, go ahead and upload it. Make sure it's there and then delete it. We don't want this to be an additional burden to you. And that's why we, have this Google folder and we want to help maintain the videos and the audio for you so you don't have to worry about it taking up a bunch of your space or a bunch of your time if you're not getting paid to do this, to put it up online.
One of the other questions I'm seeing is there a preferred list of topics for focusing? I can tell you with Influence NC, we are really focused on early voting and voting locations right now because it's hard to talk about who's on the ballot, policies on the ballot when if we can't even get to our voting locations. And so that's why we're focusing on the Board of Elections right now. And I think Democracy NC and Influence NC have been aligned on that and making sure that everyone has a secure polling place. And so that's why right now, with timelines, we've been working on voting locations because all local board of elections have to get their polling locations in by the end of July. So that's been our main focus, but it also kind of shifts as it happens. Let's see, what other questions do we have? Um, okay, the next question I'm seeing are what are the top three biggest priorities for Board of Elections meetings that people need to speak out on? Joselle, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so right now, July 8th, 2026, they are going through our early voting plan. So that's number one mission critical. Typically, before these early voting plans happen, budgets are decided and how much money is going to be allocated for these early voting sites. So if they go from five to only one and they're saying we can't afford it, those budget meetings, those early voting meetings are really important. After the early voting sites are decided, then we're going to go into the actual election. So, right, voter registration, making sure you can get a voter registration form. Earlier this year, the State Board of Elections said, hey, we don't have money to print out voter registration forms. And so you're going to have to print them out on your own. And that kind of sucks. So we need to make sure we get voter registration forms to the people that need it. And then when ballots are sent out, like via mail, that's when those meetings start to kick back up. And we want to be there in person when they're counting those mailed ballots. We all know mailed ballots is a target by this federal administration, and it's been a target by our General Assembly before as well. And so mailed ballots would be the next step as far as attending the County Board of Elections and the State Board of Elections, having any either guidance or numbered memos or rules that would come out with that. After that, of course, we're going to go into our regular ballot counting process. And then post election, November 4th, the work doesn't stop there either because we want to make sure every valid vote is counted. And there might be election challenges. If you remember Jefferson Griffin in 2024, if I had a crystal ball, I could probably guess that there might be more voter challenges come post election too. And we want to make sure we're in those meetings, in those rooms, and holding our officials accountable by recording audio and video of the public spaces where these ballots are being counted and these decisions are being made.
Yeah, and I want to add to that just real quick too. A big priority, especially as we're watching these big kind of anti-voter packages go through the General Assembly. Influence when Democracy and C were actually both there to watch House Bill 958 get kind of passed in the House and then kind of punted to the Senate. But there's a chance that some of those policies might actually end up, in practice in future elections. And so if you've got a priority when you go to your county board of election meeting, is what are they saying about that? If those things do pass, if we have master anti-voter packages at the state level, how are your local board of elections choosing to handle um, what's public, what's not public, what challenges can be made? Because most of the time they won't tell you that it's public and you can go to it. They really only tell you if it's not, and you need to assume that all other things, if you ask where it is, you're legally allowed to go. And obviously, all of these meetings at all times, you're allowed to be there and never let anyone tell you that you're not, unless, it's specifically a closed door meeting. It's been well communicated in advance.
Yeah, and I want to shout out the superstar in the chat, Tyler Day himself of Common Cause North Carolina, who is holding down all of the tracking of early votings and meetings and budgets and stuff like that. They just dropped an amazing resource in the chat that talks about the upcoming meetings or the early voting plans that are being decided right now. So thank you, Tyler, for dropping that resource. And feel free to drop any more because you are an election superstar.
Okay, I think we have time for like one more question. So if anyone wants to close us out, please feel free to send your question in before we close. Okay, well, we will go ahead and close out. I just want to thank everyone so much for spending your evening with us. This is the first time we've done a webinar like this, so I'm just so glad to see the attendance here. Thank you to both Joselle and Seth for joining, collaborating in on this. This will be the first, it will not be the last. We know that preserving democracy takes a team, it takes a village. So we appreciate y'all. The recording will be sent to your emails as well as the links for today, the places that you can go to Google Drives to share those videos. And good luck at the meetings that you attend. We cannot wait to continue this work with you.
Thanks, y'all.